We're still recording, and I forgot to turn it on right at the very beginning. And so your initial remarks up to about where you were starting to talk about the wildlife services issue, I think I missed 4 or 5 minutes of your initial remarks. If I can get channel 3 to put those in at the beginning, is there a way you could kind of repeat your little introductory remarks for the recording?
Okay, one of the big issues, of course, is COVID-19, and we're dealing with the vaccination clinics and also the testing. And so the vaccinations are going well, but there's certainly a need for better communication with people. And the governor just changed the order from the tiered system to dealing with the people over 75. And I think later on in the show, Dr. Matheson's going to talk about that we're still adhering to the tier for some of the essential workers, but basically it's a shift to the 75 and older crowd. So hopefully the communication will get better. And if you know of anyone who's not getting a notification from a clinic or a hospital or public health, just please let me know, and I'll track it down to make sure that they're getting the services we need. The PG&E's, outage is affecting everyone right now. That we have, I'm going on 5 days without electricity, and because I don't have electricity, I don't have water. And I've been in contact with the governmental liaison person for PG&E who's out of the Eureka office. She told me that she was shocked that we weren't getting notifications. And I told her, well, that's the reality. And so anyway, we'll keep on PG&E. And then we had that kind of a semi-town hall meeting about the city of Willits and the water pumping situation last Monday. And there were people from the Farm Bureau, the people who live in the valley, and certainly I appreciate the city of Willits and Andrea Trincato for getting that together along with Mayor Strong. I think we had a lot of interested parties, good information coming out, and it was just a good discussion back and forth. So I think those are some of the issues we're dealing with right now. And okay, with wildlife services, we're looking at combining animal care with animal control and wildlife services. There are 3 different entities. Animal care is run by the county. Rich Molinari is the director of that, a very good person. The animal control is run by the sheriff's office, and then wildlife services is run by USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture. So if we can get all those together under one, department, and Rich Molinari is saying that he can do it. He's got a real love of animals, and if he can provide the different services that we need in our county, I think it'd be better if it's all coordinated. Have a new program, which might be in collaboration with Sonoma County's Wildlife Services Program.
Okay.
And we'll be bringing that up probably in March to the Board of Supervisors. Let's see, one of the things we did at the board last week was the board approved unanimously my proposal to keep moving on this community or county service area 3. It's called for a zone of benefit, and it's for the Sherwood Road. And I've been working with the Sherwood Firewise Council, Keith Rutledge, and all that team up there, and lots of people around. The private landowners for the Furco Road, the Willits Creek Trail. And the thing is that last year in 2019, the governor declared that Brook Trails and Sherwood Road was one of the high wildfire risk areas in the state. So CAL FIRE went in kind of with an emergency order from the governor and cleared the Furco Road. And so that was a great benefit. We had worked getting the MOUs, the memos of understanding with those private landowners in place. And then CAL FIRE got the crew to go do the vegetation management. And because of that, they were able to do the speedy evacuation during the Oak Fire. And the speedy evacuation, because they could use both lanes of Sherwood Road, and the fire, CAL FIRE and the emergency vehicles could come up the Furco Road and Shao Road and fight the fire that way. And so this zone of benefit thing that we're doing at the board level is to create continued maintenance on those roads. And that would provide for, so that the roads don't get overgrown in a couple of years and we're in the same spot that we were 2 years ago, where we didn't have any emergency access routes. So that's the purpose of that. You'll be hearing more about that in the future. But the good thing is that the board gave the go-ahead to allocate $15,000 for this engineer's report, which is needed, and the staff time needed to carry out this election for the assessment for that area. Cannabis was certainly always a topic for the board. And I voted against this last iteration of it because it allowed for 10% of a person's ag or rangeland, and they could grow cannabis on 10% of their land. So if you had 100 acres, you could grow 10 acres of it. If you have 1,000 acres, 100 acres, and so forth, whether it's rangeland or ag land or upland residential. And I just don't think that that's the way this county wants to go. I don't hear it from the people. I don't hear it from the cannabis growers. I don't hear it from the environmentalists. I don't hear it from the Farm Bureau. I think it's going to really wreak havoc on our community by doing it that way. And it's going to open it up for the corporations to come in and buy up our ag land and turn our valley into just a big cannabis grow. And then with Measure B, I know some people are on the line waiting to talk about that. And, you know, there is this renewed interest in opening or looking at the old Howard Hospital. And so my position is I want the city council, the Willits City Council, to be informed, to know all the, what the questions are, what the concerns are, hear from the people. And I want the city council to be behind it. And I want to have a town hall so that we make sure that we're talking about all the same issues and that all the issues that are brought up can be addressed, such as security. What's that going to look like? Is there going to be a fence and lighting? Is there going to be barbed wire at the top? What's going to happen with the patients who get released every week? What's going to be the demand on the city of Willits services, such as the fire department, police department, social services? What's that going to look like? And are these issues that can be dealt with? And certainly what the neighbors think too. So I want to have all those things out in the open and discussed before any kind of decision is made. And so that's it. That's my 10 minutes, I think. And I look forward to the questions today, comments. And so thanks, Madge, for putting this on, and everyone else who helped put on this event, because I think it's important for everyone to have this dialogue even in a virtual world.
Thank you, John. Very nice introduction of a lot of issues up there. So I will take those of you who have a visual. I can see if you want to speak, if you want to wave your hand or something, and I'll put you on the stack. If you don't have a video, I will have a moment where people can unmute themselves, and one at a time. We'll allow about 3 minutes. Try to keep your comments or your questions to John relatively brief so that we have time for everybody. So I'll maybe Lisa, if you could be sort of an informal timekeeper, and if anybody's really not wrapping up by the time they got 3 minutes, just come on and remind them of their time. Is that okay, Lisa? Can you?
Yes, you said 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okie doke. So you'll be timekeeper. And who would like to lead off with a question or a comment? I'm going to do, okay, I see Janine has her hand up. So Janine, why don't you go ahead?
Well, hello, this is my first time at this town hall meeting, and I'm grateful to be able to talk with you, Madge, and directly, and thank you for hosting this. And I am grateful, John, for you taking time out of your Sunday when you are impacted with weather and crisis to have this town hall meeting with us. So I'm really grateful to be here. And the fact that we even have this technology that we can still be meeting during this time is pretty, silver linings everywhere. So I had been kind of in a place where I was wanting to talk with you, Madge, from maybe a couple of months back, when there was a letter that was put out about the financial crisis that Willits was in. I haven't been informed as to any solution to any of those problems or any remedy to that situation. Although at that point, I started my wheels turning and was thinking about the area that we live in. I am a mother first here in Willits. I have 3 children that attend Willits Unified School, and I am a business owner and I'm a property owner here in Willits, and I've been here for 11 years. And I know that there are people who live in town. I have friends that live in Brook Trails, the Valley, and every area in this. And I am under the impression, and I would love clarification on this, about there are unincorporated areas. So the Willits town is population 5,000 people, but that does not include Brook Trails, that does not include the Valley, that does not include all these unincorporated areas. My question comes, well, what is happening to the property taxes of people who live in these unincorporated areas, where their money, they may use Mariposa Market, they may go to the post office, their children may go to Willits Unified School, although they don't live in the city limits of Willits. So in my mind, thinking, well, is their money, is their property taxes from these large properties or different properties, or there's thousands, maybe hundreds of people who live out in the Valley or Brook Trails, is their money being incorporated into this town of Willits? And if there is a way that we could incorporate that money to help the town, especially for citizens who are making Willits their home base.
Thank you.
Well, Madge, I think that was a question for you.
I can answer that at least in part. The property taxes go to the jurisdiction that people are officially in. So if your property is inside the city limits, there is a property share that goes to the city and a property share that goes to the county, as well as different shares that go to the school district and the fire district and other, special districts that provide services. If you're outside of the city limits, the city does not get any share of the property tax. It goes to the county and these other jurisdictions, including the school districts. What does help the city a lot is all of the people that are in the unincorporated area, but have their business or shop within the city limits, because those sales tax, those go to the city. So all the sales tax from business activity inside the city limits go at least partly to the city. We get, I think, 1 cent out of the chunk that goes for property tax, for sales tax. And in November, the city population voted on an increase of a 3/4 of a cent increase in the sales tax, which basically put us on a level playing field with all the other jurisdictions, the county, Ukiah, Fort Bragg, even Lake County and so forth. It doesn't bump us much above any of those. It just makes us on a level playing field. So anyway, basically all of the jurisdictions have very, very similar sales tax, but now Willits used to be way behind everybody else. So now we are getting basically our fair share of the sales tax revenue. And that is going to make a huge difference in being able to balance our budget. So we do have a hearing coming up on our budget, a mid-year reevaluation of our budget. And I believe that is going to be on our February 10th City Council meeting. So if you are interested in getting into the nitty-gritty about budget, get on the list to get notified, and you can also get a copy online or get a copy if you need it for that February 10th City Council meeting. This is just a mid-year adjustment in our economic situation, and the next fiscal year will be, of course, the budget usually comes around in June. So does that kind of answer your question, Janine?
It does answer my question, but although it raises other questions as to why Willits city limits is such a small pool that doesn't incorporate a lot of people where Willits is their town, and
Yes.
their property taxes are not going towards Willits town. So you're talking about 1 cent on the dollar of sales tax going to the city. I'm talking about thousands of dollars from thousands of people going to the city of Willits. And that would be a very successful and beneficial way to balance the budget, and not only balance the budget, but really help prosper Willits.
Okay.
I don't understand.
And Janine, if I could jump in, that, yeah, there's a problem with the city of Willits budget, and hopefully that Measure K will rectify some of the things. But we also have a problem with the county budget too. And we're trying to do more than we have the money for. And Ukiah is probably the same, and Fort Bragg could say the same too. So it's all, we're trying to live within our own budgets. And I think that if you start looking at trying to readjust boundary lines just to mess with the budget, you're going to have a huge fight on your hands.
Another factor for the city is that if we incorporate any of the areas that aren't currently in the city limits, we have to be able to provide city services, which include expanding police, roads, water and sewer, and some of the areas would be really expensive to serve. So the idea of it all being one big community, it's true, we are one big community, but in terms of fiscal policy and jurisdictional services that you have to provide and all of that, it would be a really huge readjustment. I mean, I can't imagine what it would cost the city to try to serve directly, say, Brook Trails or Pine Mountain or even a lot of areas in the valley. So for the time being, anyway, that is kind of, and it's also controlled by state law. You know, any kind of adjustments in the boundaries are under state law and under a group called is it MCOG? No, it's not MCOG. It's the LAFCO. And it's a major deal to try to change that. So it's not necessarily a bad idea, but it's one that would have enormous obstacles. And meanwhile, you know, each of the jurisdictions has to kind of figure out what they can provide within the sources of revenue that they have. And I think the county has a lot of services they have to provide to the unincorporated area and within the city. So these property shares of the property taxes are, you know, it's a huge challenge. So we're doing the best we can. And I see next hand, Mills Matheson. Unmute yourself.
Well, if the city would expand out Locust, you already supply the sewer system to that area and the water system. So the expansion would not be very expensive, and it would give us space for more housing. And I understand the county is opposed to it. and is not willing to allow you to do that. Is that true?
Not from my understanding. I think that the county was open for discussion on it, and we just needed to sit down and talk. So maybe in this, I could talk to Madge about it, and we could talk to Brian Bender, the new city manager. So what I hear is that the county would be open to talking about it. We just need to sit down.
And I think that has been on the city's mind for quite some time. There's a lot of potential area for development that would be feasible for the city to provide services, but it needs to go through this whole process and come up with a property tax sharing agreement with the county and the city. So we're looking at it, and it isn't as easy as it seems. It seems really straightforward. Did you have any other comments?
John, if the city council of Willits opposes the Howard Hospital PUF unit, will you oppose it as a supervisor?
Yes, I believe so. Because I want the city of Willits to be on board. If that's the way the county wants to go. If the county says, let's do the old Howard, and then,
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Oh, so if the county says, let's do the old Howard, and the city council says, no, we don't want it here, then I would certainly push for looking at some other place.
Yeah, it would be nice if we look at several different sites at the same time. Just looking at one and deciding yes or no is not a reasonable thing. There are other sites that I think are more reasonable, frankly.
And those are being discussed.
Yeah.
We are talking about different sites.
And at the meeting, it was implied that we in Willits are opposed to it because we discriminate against the mentally ill. And I'd like to point out that we have a 16-bed psych facility in Willits on Main Street downtown with 16 seriously mentally ill patients from Mendocino County and from other counties. And we have embraced that. There's never been any opposition to that. And there's never been any opposition to the Manzanita project at the Methodist Church. So I get upset when people say Willits discriminates against the mentally ill. We have embraced the mentally ill project here. And we're the only community in Mendocino County that has a 16-bed residential psych facility for the seriously mentally ill. And we don't get credit for that. I mean, they accuse us of being opposed to the PUF unit because we discriminate against the mentally ill. That isn't true. The reason I'm opposed to it is the impact of the homeless. It's going to be a magnet for the homeless, unfortunately. And we don't have the facilities to take care of the homeless in this town. And if someone was willing to buy a hotel for us and open up a restaurant for the homeless, then I would say, go ahead and do this PUF unit. But until we have some facilities to take care of the homeless that will be attracted, I'm opposed to it.
Well, I think that you're right in that, in our discussions, you've said that in Humboldt County, in their PUF unit, 40% of the clientele are homeless. And so what happens when we bring those people into the PUF and after a week they have to leave, then what do we do with them? And I don't think Willits has an answer yet. I'm certainly willing to have that information out there about what the plan would be and what the plan would be with the people who get released, discharged, and then they're homeless. And do they have to be taken away? Do they get a bus permit pass, or do they get proactive transportation back to where they came from?
Yeah.
There's lots of questions around that whole issue.
It's just like the jail. Someone is taken to the door and they have the right to stay where they are, or they can take a bus ride someplace else, but they have free citizens. They can, once they're released, they can go wherever they want to. They're not, we can't force them to go someplace else. And the other thing is, frankly, most of the 5150s are from Ukiah. And it seems to make more sense for this unit to be based in Ukiah, where most of the patients are going to be coming from. The previous PUF unit was in Ukiah. I don't know why we don't restore the previous PUF unit that we had. 20 years ago, we closed it. Why not opening it up again in Ukiah?
Okay, thank you, Mills. I think I saw Jane, who is listed as Rosemary, but it's actually Jane McCabe. So it's your turn, Jane.
Thank you. Speaking to that question about having facilities for the mentally ill in our town and how the town was not opposed to it. I lived in this town and still do, have for 20 years. And I know when that unit changed on Main Street there from being just for the aged to the mentally ill, to my knowledge, there was very little, if any, community knowledge about that building being changed to the mentally ill. It was just sold to another outfit or rented to Ortner, which I believe runs it. And ta-da, we had it there. Many people did not know and probably still do not know. And that's one of the reasons why it's so popular. They don't know. And what people don't know, they don't resist. And when people do know something about something, that gives them the opportunity to resist it. So I will say right now that almost positively, that was the reason there wasn't resistance to that. I lived here. I had a mentally ill son. I have had for 35 years. And I've seen the amount of services that we do not have in this county. It's not because people hate the mentally ill. It's because people are not informed, ill-informed, and we don't have much money. That's one of the reasons we don't have much. We have some very caring people that do participate with the mentally ill in our community. Manzanita is definitely one of them. And by the way, Manzanita was resisted at other locations. I've been active with Manzanita for years and was on their board for 6 years. And believe me, there has been resistance come from this community. So if there's a possibility, there is resistance, is what I'm saying. And it depends on us educating ourselves. If we think because we don't have a PUF unit here, we do not have the mentally ill, or we do not have the mentally ill that needs to have these PUF units, we are sadly mistaken because we do have them. They are here. They are already here. They're not someplace else, they're here. Some of them are in Ukiah, some of them are in Fort Bragg, but believe me, they're here too. So just stating that we didn't have resistance before, I think is a fallacy to build a case on. That's not a viable case.
Yeah, I was fully aware that Ortner was converting that to a psych facility. I was fully aware of that and supported it.
So I want to make sure we call on some people that haven't had a chance yet, but I do think that we're going to be having some kind of forum relatively soon to collect all the information that we can about what the possibilities are. What the possibilities are for placement of the PUF unit in different places, and also what are the other possibilities for the old Howard Hospital facility. And the city is going to be wanting to hear from all different viewpoints. So there will be plenty more conversation and
Madge, if I can just say what the process is right now,
sure.
is that the Measure B Oversight Committee decided that they wanted an ad hoc committee of the Board of Supervisors and the Willits City Council to get together and talk about what the concerns are. And then they can bring it back to the Willits City Council. And I've also said that I wanted to make sure that we had a town hall dedicated to just talking about the old Howard Hospital and this PUF, and to make sure that we were going through all the processes to see that we got all the viewpoints and before going forward with it. So right now I'm on that ad hoc from the board with Supervisor Williams. And then I've talked to Mayor Madge Strong to set up an ad hoc from the city. So we're waiting to get those two groups together to have this discussion along with the city manager to just see where we are, and also have the head of public or mental health department so that we get all the right information to everyone. And then we see where we go from there.
Okay. All right. I am looking to see, I don't see a hand raised. Okay, Sherry, and then I will call on people that don't have the ability to raise their hand, but let's have Sherry next. Sherry
So,
Amian.
I'm just gonna keep talking, continue the discussion about Measure B. I'm curious, I don't know where this psych facility is in Willits. It's that much of a secret. I'm curious to know where that is, but my questions are really about moving forward, where I've attended many Measure B meetings on Zoom, and it doesn't seem that there is a designated individual who is leading anything, There's an oversight committee, but they oversee what's being done. And then we have county employees and we have a project manager, but when I hear about looking at alternative sites, I know that the contract with the architects includes looking at our alternative sites. When we talk about a town hall meeting and people putting out questions, who is the quote unquote expert that will be able to answer these? John, you raised, questions about the facility itself, security, fencing, lighting, patients being discharged, where will they go? Who is the person that can answer these questions? I think we can come up with endless questions, but I just don't see any leadership at the county, not the Board of Supervisors, but at the county offices, to move this forward. So who is doing that?
Yeah. Thanks, Sherry. I'm relying on Dr. Miller, who is the head of mental health for the county. And she has experience in PUF units. And so hopefully she knows what the laws are, what's required. And we're looking at the RFP, which is a request for proposal for someone to operate a PUF unit. So we do have a couple bids on offer or proposals to run the PUF unit. It's just deciding if one of those is appropriate for our county, and then if it is, then where are we going to house it? So hopefully the mental health experts within the county structure know what is required of a PUF. And I hope that answers your question. The board, and I'll just add that the board.
Mills, you're muted. You're muted, Mills.
Oh,
I'm
did.
sorry.
We don't have experts on PUFs in the mental health. It's been 20 years since we had a PUF unit here. It was closed because the county was losing too much money and it was such a hassle running it. We do not have experts on PUFs. We should have brought in an expert from one of the PUFs to guide us, and we didn't. It was a big mistake.
Well, maybe that's what we need to do then at this point.
And we need to get some expert advice about where's the best place to site it is. Hopefully you'll pick a provider soon, and that provider can look around the county and decide, and offer a couple of good sites that we can evaluate. But until we have, we got to get a provider. You got to sign that contract with a provider soon, so we have some guidance from an expert.
Right.
I know many of us have been somewhat disappointed with the Measure B committee advisor, just not our oversight committee, lacking in real direction and leadership and clear choices. It just seems like it's been going on and on, but that's, I think they're trying to get direction now, at least. So
Madge, if I could just add to that,
Sure.
is that the board did recognize that the Measure B Oversight Committee was kind of floundering in their deliberations, say. And so what we did was we created an ad hoc committee of Supervisor Williams and myself to look at the issues and to put, to look for a business plan and a strategic plan, put those together. We're still working on that. I mean, Sherry Ebium has been great in coming up with a somewhat of a business plan, and that's been very helpful to me. But at the same time, we have done some things, like just in December, we proposed 2 programs. One was for community education and outreach, and the other was for aftercare. And both of those programs we proposed, and they were passed by the board unanimously. And so we have 3 programs. We have those 2 programs of community education and outreach, and aftercare, and a mobile ops, or MOPS is what they call it, which is a mobile outreach services. And so that would be teaming a mental health worker with a deputy from the sheriff's department. And they would go out and make contact with the 5150 cases over where it's an obvious mental health issue. So the 2 of them would be teaming up to provide both mental health and security if needed. So there has been some progress. There's the training center, which is getting finished off, and then the crisis residential treatment center, which is being built in Ukiah. So there has been some progress.
It's sounding to me like we're going to have a town hall that's exclusively, dedicated to this issue at some point. But meanwhile, it's good to hear from everybody. And I know that John Almeida kind of indicated he wanted to say something a while ago. So I thought I would call on him, and then I will open it to people that aren't able to raise their hands. And we'll, again, one person at a time. So John, go ahead.
Madge,
Thank
Oh,
you,
this
Madge.
is Lisa. I just want to interrupt. Naomi would like a minute to talk also,
Okay, great.
or
Okay, so
3 minutes.
David Corral here. I'd like to talk also.
Okay, so Lisa, if you can keep track of, I will write those down.
Are you ready for me, Madge?
Yes.
Okay, first of all, there's 2 items I want to respond to. One of them is this the Measure B situation. And if I was going to be making a decision on that, I certainly wouldn't make the decision because there's a facility already built here. First, it would wrap around the different programs that can support the people once they're out of the facility. And it's obvious that Willits is not the place. Ukiah is the county seat. It's a bigger community. It has more safety officers there in both the city of Ukiah and the county. And it has a better spot for people to get services than Willits does. The second is the security of the people around the Howard Hospital. And of course, I would be thinking about that too. Past that, I want to go on and respond to Ms. Johnson's comments on funding for the city of Willits. Unlike Ukiah, where the city limits doesn't start until you get to Taco Bell, and it stops about halfway, well, actually at Beacon Lane at the south end of Ukiah, where there's businesses on both ends who do not get pay the sales tax into the city. Every business except for maybe 2 that I can think of in the city of Willits has sales tax that goes to the city, even though the people in Brook Trails and the people in the valley and Pine Mountain did not have a chance to vote on that. They're paying that sales tax, and that sales tax is actually higher than any other city around right now. It's higher than Santa Rosa, it's higher than Ukiah, Fort Bragg, and 1/4% higher doesn't mean much until you buy a car or you buy something like that, but then it means a lot. And then also you got a 1/2-cent sales tax for streets. And I don't see anything being done unless they can hire it out, which is very wrong. And so there's plenty of tax money going to the city. They have a 10-year window for this tax before it reverts back and they vote on it again. And I believe that window is an opportunity for this city to start looking for bringing in industry here like we used to have in the 60s and 70s. And if we don't do that, then this sales tax isn't going to cover the needs of this city anyway. So we need to look at that because this city does not have the type of industry that will sustain what they need to sustain. And that's what's got to happen. At one time you had a person there that I'll give you an example. The grocery store, grocery outlet, that building was empty when Ray's Century left there. And you had a lady that worked for the city that went looking for, she wrote letters to different businesses and she got grocery outlet in there. In fact, grocery outlet, the head guy, the CEO, was surprised that the city of Willits was courting them. And that's the kind of situation we need. We need somebody that's going to court these businesses to figure out what we need here, to get them in here. And that's how we're going to sustain this situation. We're not going to sustain this situation on continually raising sales tax. The industrial job will bring 3 commercial jobs for each industrial job. That's what makes this city go. And that's what we got to go. And as far as property tax, when you're getting the amount of sales tax you have, that's more than the property tax is going to bring in for the city of Willits. All right, thank you.
Thank you, John. Good points you've made there. I've been aware of those. Okay, I have Naomi Wagner, and then after her, David Drell.
Hey everybody, this is Naomi Wagner. I can't see you, but I guess you can see me, and it's great to see you. And it's amazing the technology that even works where I am right now, fairly remote corner of the woods. I hope that people are satisfied with the discussion of Measure B, because I would like to change to Measure V. I know B comes before V, but Measure V, as probably most of you remember, was an initiative passed in 2016 to basically declare that the use of herbicides to kill trees in the forest, mostly tan oak, and leave them dead and standing was a hazardous practice and a threat to public health. However, it's never been fully enforced or enforced at all. And I want to know, I know, John, that you supported that measure and you have, I think, been unwavering in your support of it, but we have not had the votes on the board to do anything about it. And now I'm thinking that it looks like we may
Naomi, you're breaking up, I'm sorry to say, but I think you've made at least enough so that John could comment about the concern about implementation.
Oh, John, can you hear me now?
Yes,
How do we bring it up?
John.
Okay, great question. Is that last year that the board gave direction to the county council to come up with options for the board in how to implement and enact Measure V. And so at this next board meeting on February 9th, it is coming back to the board. So county council has made their funding and is coming back with those options. So we will have a discussion about it. So I'll probably see you there on February 9th.
Great. Thanks for the update, John. I hope we'll have a chance to talk about it more before the 9th. I have concerns about the whole way that it might be enforced that maybe we can't go into here, but the whole complaint-driven process, as we've seen in the last 4 years, is not really working.
Is there
Right.
a time?
Okay.
Is there a time certain, John, on that hearing?
No, I don't know. I don't know when it will come up.
It's
on the
very,
9th.
because of the board meetings go on for hours and hours. It's nice if there is a time certain for a public hearing.
Thank you, Madge.
Thank you, Naomi. And then David Drell is next, and then we'll see who else after
Yes.
that.
Hi there. I'm hoping Mills Matheson is still on the line. It's still
Yes,
listening
yes,
in.
he is.
So I wonder if we could get Mills's opinion of the city of Willits plans to mix arsenic contaminated water from the Long 20 well in with the with other groundwater in their groundwater proposal, and to what standards is the city going to try to treat the water? I know that, and this is an issue for the county because people in the county are concerned about water quality in Willits because we in the old days we at least and we hope to go to restaurants and use tap water in Willits, but how much arsenic will be in the water and how will they propose to treat it, and to what standard will the water be treated?
When it was proposed years ago, I was opposed to it. Arsenic is a carcinogen. There's no threshold that's zero risk, and we should avoid it if unless there's a horrible emergency. And I don't know what they have lowered the arsenic standard since I last looked into it by a factor of 10. Again, it's a carcinogen. We shouldn't be putting it in our water.
Well, it's in the city's plan.
I wanted to comment on that just briefly, at least in terms of where it stands right now. John Haschak did initiate a discussion, again, online discussion, and invited everybody he was aware of who had concerns about it, just for an informational presentation. And we heard from the city engineering department and some previous reports. And I think that was very helpful to me to hear a lot about it. It is a much deeper well and apparently is not arsenic contaminated, but I don't know the details on that. But I also heard that the city's treatment plant for those groundwater wells does address arsenic if needed. And more importantly, there was a comment period on the mitigated negative declaration on this project that the deadline was just a few days ago. I have talked to our city engineering staff. It's Andrea Trincato, that she will continue to accept comments for the next week and a half or two. So if anybody wants to continue to comment on that draft negative declaration, you still have time to do that. And then it will be presented to the city council in a public hearing, which again is open to the public for comments. And that will be either the last meeting in February, which I can give you the date, or the first meeting in March. It wasn't clear yet which meeting they would get to. One of them would be February 24th. And if it doesn't make it to that, it would be on March 10th. You can find out by contacting, and you can find out, kind of the schedule. Andrea Trincato, and her phone number is 459-7126. And then she'll make sure you're notified whenever there is a public hearing, and also how to comment between now and then if you want to comment to the city. And I think that's all I need to say about that. John, do you want to comment about that?
I'd just like to say it's great to have the mayor of Willits online too to answer some of these questions. And I appreciate like John Almeida bringing this up to me, and then the Farm Bureau was on the line, people from the Valley who were concerned about this issue, and the city of Willits was very responsive and had their studies. So I think it was a good meeting, and if need be, we'll have another.
I would like to ask one thing, Madge.
Yeah.
I just received email because I got on the list of the city for the comments to be posted. And the comments that I got just a week or two ago was posted, was dated back in August 20th. Can you see if the city of Willits, the engineering department, can post the comments from whenever they stopped this deadline, which was supposed to be the 28th, which was last Thursday? Can we get those comments posted earlier so that we can look at them, please?
Good. Okay, I will check in with Andrea tomorrow and make sure that we get, if it's on the website, the city's website, that we get as up to date as possible. There were some people that didn't get notified of the advance, you know, the January 28th deadline, and I contacted her and she said, no problem. She'll continue to accept comments. So good.
I
So,
did leave a paper for Dr. Mills Matheson because I knew he was concerned about arsenic and I wanted to get him involved. I thank you, Mills, for being here today.
yes.
I just wish I could have got a little more response from the message I left for you at your office. But in any case, I hope you get involved because I think it's pretty serious. If not the new well, but the long 20 well is supposed to have arsenic. So we need to know exactly what's going to be mixed in. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we're, Henry, I see your hand up. Okay, you're next. And then we will see if there's some other people out there. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Is there a disaster designation for Mendocino County and other areas affected by this latest storm that's caused such enormous damage?
Yeah, I don't think there's been a disaster declared yet. So we'll see, and I'll check on that tomorrow, Henry, and I'll get back to you. But so far there hasn't.
Yeah, it's stunning how much is going on. There are crews coming from the greater Northwest helping Mendocino County and other places that have been bombed by this storm.
Well, this response that I got
It's-
from PG&E yesterday said that there were crews coming from British Columbia and Washington State.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
We talked with a guy from Utah today.
Oh, okay.
John, you mentioned about the emergency access for Furco Road and how important that was with the Oak Fire. Was that able to also help with the fact that Sherwood Road was completely closed and cars were backed up and trees were down over the roads? Did that get activated again?
You know, I haven't heard from the sheriff about that. So I don't think they activated it. For
Maybe
this.
that road may not have been passable either.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think I'd want to be
every-
on that road in a snowstorm.
Essentially, every road in the county was inaccessible for a pretty good period of time.
Yeah, pretty major. And by the way, I found out that the PG&E had made the Willits Community Center an evacuation center as needed during the fires. And a few weeks ago, they pulled the generator out because they said, well, it's not fire season anymore. You don't need an evacuation center. Mm-hmm. So I think our city manager and assistant city manager are trying to get that back in place so that at least there is some place for people to go if they have no power and no refrigeration and no AC, well, you know, whatever, no heat. Henry, yeah, follow up.
I would suggest the city set aside funds for a permanent in-place natural gas or multi-fuel generator for just that purpose and not depend on an outside agency. PG&E is great. No, it's not so great. No, it's horrible. All of that.
I
Right?
thought it was permanent. I thought that, but anyway, it wasn't. Okay,
Yeah,
so
Madge,
good suggestion.
we're
Lisa,
gonna
yes.
have Amy would like to speak.
Great. Okay, Amy Nord.
Hi, yeah, thanks. I just wanted to follow up on someone else brought up the possible, just looking into if we were going to be designated as a disaster area after these latest storms. My biggest concern right now after walking around, like, not even roads themselves, but like public lands, trail areas, just the amount of trees down there. I just feel like we're going to be the next Paradise Fire. So how do we prevent that now, like 6 months out from fire season is my biggest concern.
Right. Great question, Amy. Good to see you and hear your baby. Yeah, I drove up into Brook Trails yesterday and just the amount of trees down was just shocking. We do need to get, like Sherwood Firewise has been doing the chipper days. And I don't know, I'll check in with the Emergency Operations Center tomorrow to see what they can do. Because there's so much down branches, trees that need to be chipped or hauled away before fire season. So it's certainly a call to do something about it. And I will check on it. Okay.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. So is there anybody else who would like to? Yes?
Yeah, this is John. I'd like to add a little bit more. When we were having the fire situation and PG&E, if you remember correctly, before PG&E decided to do this, I brought a picture into the city council meeting of these trailer mounted generators, great big generators. And wanted to see some for the substation out here in the valley. So it'd run more than the city council's office. It would run a few things in the city. Yeah. You may not be aware of it, but the city of Fort Bragg has 12 of those units. We're talking about big semi-trailer units put in by PG&E in the city of Fort Bragg. Ukiah has several of those units. Why can't Willits have those? My understanding was that PG&E purchased a solar system for the city council's office or city hall. And I'm just wondering if they just decided that if they did that, they didn't need to provide the substation, but we're in tier 1. So during fire season, that could be a valuable asset. Also, if you had to have people come down here in the winter time, that would still be to the city hall for some type of protection because of the winter storms. That would be an asset, and it would help more than the city hall. It would help people in the tier 1 areas also. The other thing is, as far as the roads go, when I ran a crew, this county crew, we went up through Sherwood Road and we cut from there all the way past through Poppy, passed through brook trails on both sides of the road. We got a lot of negative comments. They thought we were environmental terrorists, but now maybe they're starting to see the reason why you do that. It's called public safety. And you trim things back and take out snags and do stuff like that so that there will be safety during this time. So that is a very important thing. And then Mr. Haschak, John, all the way out, if you're going to ever use Fort Bragg, or not Fort Bragg, Sherwood, but North Sherwood going out to 101 north of the Covelo turnoff, the county DOT needs to look into a box culvert for that area out there. You got one wet crossing left, so you need to look into that too for emergency access in case the emergency egresses during the times of inclement weather. So that would be probably the last place where they need to do something other than just doing groundwork. So anyway, you might look into that. Thank you.
Well, and to add to that point, John, is that Sherwood Firewise Council got a CAL FIRE grant for, I think, $477,000 to do vegetation management on Sherwood Road from Highway 101 in Willits all the way to Highway 101, 17 miles north of Willits. And so that is going to be starting in the springtime. And it's a huge undertaking, and it's also to include Ridge Road and Timberline Road up in the Sherwood area. So, I really appreciate what Sherwood Firewise Council has done in that regard of being proactive and doing some things that the local government hasn't done.
Great. One other comment from me, and that is that I'm not sure when it'll get scheduled, but the city is going to have a prioritizing workshop, and it'll be open to the public, and things like putting in a budget for a major generator or independent source of power during emergencies would be great. And John Almeida, I hope you will talk to our city manager and be present when we're
going to unplug myself
talking about those things. Okay, so who else? There's some folks who are here. but
Matt,
haven't
this is
spoken.
Ellen Brown. I unmuted myself, so maybe when I can speak, let me know.
Is that Ellen?
Yes.
Yeah, you don't have your name listed, but I don't see anyone else on the list at the moment. So Ellen, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, thanks. The unnamed caller. I want to thank John and Madge for having this town hall. It just feels great to me to be talking to people and among ourselves in real time. It's such a breath of fresh air. So I appreciate the efforts that you've put into making this happen amidst everything else, especially on your plate, John. So back to the cannabis issue, John, I want to thank you for your vote last week. And I think your reasons are all excellent, and I appreciate your willingness to separate yourself from the pack and speak your mind. I hope, though you didn't mention it at the meeting or today, I hope that you are still opposed to opening up the rangeland district, which of course is a huge remote fire-prone area of the eastern county. For all these months, you have generally been opposed to promoting commercial agricultural operations in that district, given all the risks and the limitations of those districts. And so I'm hoping, though you didn't mention it, that is still your position. It's really interesting in these times when apparently the whole county is not all that far away from a crisis of one kind or another at any moment. So our land use decisions are more important than ever, and the consideration of proximity to emergency services, road access, safety, the ability to not get caught up in some natural disaster if you can help it are all important considerations for us to make as communities and as a county as a whole. And so I think not encouraging, incentivizing more remote rural development, especially commercial scale development, is really the way to go. And I want to support you, John, in your efforts to that end and in your efforts in trying to convince the other supervisors that kind of a land use decision would be a mistake.
Well, yeah, I'll just say this, Ellen, that I still am against the rangeland expansion. And I think that there's a very strong coalition against that of environmentalists like yourself, and then the sheriff and the Farm Bureau. And I think people in areas like Covelo, Laytonville, who just don't want cannabis grown everywhere. And so I still am against rangeland, and I think those points you brought up are very valid, especially with the wildfires that we've been seeing, and more people out there growing cannabis just provides a bigger headache for CAL FIRE to try to fight and manage fires. So.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a few people that we haven't heard from yet, so let me just give them a chance, and then Henry has his hand up. Is any of the folks that have been politely listening but have a comment want to speak up?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, and who is this?
My name is Keith Peterson.
Okay, go ahead.
I just have a couple questions about other aspects of the county projects for John. Just find out what he knows about the new courthouse. I heard there was a project a few years back about building a new courthouse, and if you could speak to how that's progressing. And then I also heard that the county has purchased 551 South Orchard Avenue from Richard Seltzer Realty, that building. And I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, could you explain what the purpose, what they're going to use that for?
Okay, so as far as the courthouse is concerned, I'm not sure where it is right now because that's with the California Judicial Council. And so they're the ones building the courthouse. And for that 551 South Orchard, the Seltzer building, we are not buying it. So that was because the county did purchase through that Project Home Key, the Best Western building over there. And so to convert it into homeless, but also people who were working but didn't have a home, and all sorts of situations for veterans and senior citizens. So that's going to be used for multiple uses, that Best Western. And the Seltzer building was across the street. And I think that it was offered, but the county isn't going to buy it.
All right. Are there any other people who haven't commented yet? And I'm not hearing anybody. If you are in that category, you could unmute yourself and speak up. Otherwise, I'm going to put Henry back on here. Henry Shevitz.
Thank you. The other John was speaking about generators, and I spoke about it as well. And then I realized I had forgotten one of the big problems during the planned power outages. A lot of folks now have purchased and are using generators to keep their lives alive. And one of the biggest problems last year was that when the power went down, all the gas stations went down. And so I think it would be prudent. This is City of Willits, of course, in a lot of ways, but county also has a hand in this. Generators either purchased by or given to gas stations, critical gas stations. I mean, we only had Brown's Corner and Costco. Those are the only two places that I'm aware of that were selling gas during the power outage. And so people were lined up for miles trying to get gasoline when all that was needed was a powerful enough generator at a few key gas stations to keep the pumps running. It's definitely short-term fix. It doesn't work long-term, but if these power outages happen, there's a lot of people who get in some really deep trouble when their power goes down for prolonged periods of time. So that's my comment.
I'd like to answer that if I could.
Okay, John.
So I've attended both the City of Willits and the County Board of Supervisors meetings. The last meeting with the county, when they interviewed the gentleman from PG&E, and John Haschak was there also attending that meeting. The subject was about these big generators that can be brought in on semi-trailers. You're not going to get every business to buy a small generator. They're not going to do that. There's liability issues in that. What you need to do is pressure PG&E to do what they did in Fort Bragg and Ukiah. That way, the City of Willits can't afford to do this. The County of Mendocino can't afford to do this, but PG&E said they would. And during the last proposed power shutoff that they were going to have, and luckily just by a few hours, Willits missed it. We were supposed to have generators up here. The man that spoke at the Representative PG&E at the County Board of Supervisors told me that within hours or a couple days, they would know what's going to happen and they would have these generators up here. Well, no, they did not have these generators up here. And when I looked at the ones in Fort Bragg, and I'm talking 12 of them, and I look at how they wired them, I'm saying there is no way within a few hours they can bring them up here and get this substation, which is in Tier 1, brought up. They need to be pressured by both the county and the City of Willits to put these in here during the season so that they'll be available. And then you won't have to worry about businesses going and buying their own. They can put enough power in here to do 3 gas stations, both grocery stores, both pharmacies, and a few other facilities, and that'll take care of the situation. It's a matter of pressuring PG&E to do the right thing. That's what it is.
Wow. Well, John, I want to work with you on getting the city to be part of that lobbying and getting that done. We want to have that happen. And John, I would welcome your, John Haschak's help on that too. I just
Yeah.
wanted to remind people, especially right now, that private use of generators does have some risk involved if people don't know what they're doing. During the fire season, when people were also out of power, our fire department was really freaked out about the possibility of people starting fires inadvertently because they didn't know how to run their generators. So it's not, yeah, that's an important caveat. And so I don't know if there's any other comments out there or questions for John Haschak. This has already been a very good exchange of information. Anybody else have some things that I think I see? Janine, is that, or yes, you have your hand up, Janine? All right, we're still open for business. It's yeah, good. Go ahead.
So one other question that I did have was about the county buildings, specifically the libraries reopening, and the policies that are in place that allow us to go to different other shopping experiences, but not be able to use the library and maybe other other social services and community services, and how we can get those back up and operating successfully.
John?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not sure what the plan is for the library to reopen. And they have been doing you can check out books online, pick them up, deliver them. But I haven't heard anything about when they might be having their doors open. But I'll check on that, Janine.
All right.
Okay. And if you could send me your email, just I'll get back to you.
Okay. And by the way, quite a while ago, John put his email in the chat. Maybe you could do it again, John, so it's near, and then if anyone doesn't know how to email John, it'll be in the chat. And I see Jane has her hand up, I believe. Jane?
Yes, I wanted, one thing that I've noted is, and being an educator made my ears more open to this, is the big challenges that parents and children are having by not being able to attend school during this pandemic. Of course, it's very understandable why they were closed to start with. But one of the things that I have also noted is that on the East Coast, many schools are open. That doesn't mean that they haven't had to close during periodical pieces of time, but they have been open. The second thing I would note around this is that when I went to get my vaccination over at the senior center, there was a whole group of teachers that were getting their vaccination after me. I also noted that none of them looked like they were 75 or frankly, even 65 years old. They were all quite a bit younger than that. So would you have any insight into why that's happening and school openings, et cetera,
Because
John?
they want to get the schools open, you idiot. Jeez.
Hey, let's be respectful. Okay. So Jane, that was a great question. And so according to the tier program that they had, that teachers and people who work in the schools were considered essential workers, and so they were in a high priority. So that's why they were included. And what I heard from Dr. Corin, our public health officer, was that over 70% of all the school districts, all the personnel for all the school districts in the county did get vaccinated. And I just received an email this morning from Dr. Corin stating that they have a new protocol for reopening schools, and that the schools have, because we're going back into the red tier, I believe. And so when that happens, they can open up schools, and they're looking at the kindergarten through 6th grade first. And then if they stay, well, there's a lot of testing that schools have to do to stay open. And I guess that's going to cost the schools a lot. And so it's this protocol, but they're hopeful that with this new protocol, they can open schools in the near future. So,
That's great.
I think we all want the schools to be open, but we want them to be open safely, of course.
Absolutely. I'm in total agreement with that. And I think it would be excellent. I mean, I have a little niece that's trying to attend kindergarten on Zoom, for goodness sakes. And it's so challenging for her parents, for teachers. I'm really glad to see this happening. And I know it was a priority that our new president had also, and I believe Gavin Newsom. So I'm glad to see us doing our work for that. I really am. And I think we're progressing better in this county with getting our vaccines out than they are in many counties. I thought it was sort of haphazard, but our percentages are better than they are in some of our other much larger counties. So word of mouth works.
Do you know, does somebody know if the COVID relief package that is going through in Congress, hopefully going through, will include aid to school districts as well as local governments to help them get the vaccinations and the testing that they need in order to reopen? Anybody know the answer to that?
No, I don't, but Governor Newsom had a proposal of offering, I think, $700 per student for school districts that would reopen. And that was to provide the testing and the PPE and everything that would be needed to get the schools open. But I think a lot of schools were saying even that wasn't going to, they couldn't justify it with that amount of money because it would still be a burden on the schools.
It's tricky. Okay. Are there any other folks out there who want to get a word in?
Well, I can see that Henry just wrote in the chat box that his power just came on. So congratulations, Henry. You can take a shower now. And we really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to that moment too, that I can say that. So
I have not been able to follow what was in chat. I know that John has put his email and phone number up there again. That's good. Henry's got power, so this is good. And Tim Rice, you have something that says brown. I don't know what that's about.
Said something about brown? What?
Well, it says, it's on the chat from Tim Rice to everybody that says brown. Do you know what that's about, Tim?
Well, on my end, it says you can raise a virtual hand by clicking reactions on the bottom of your Zoom's window and clicking raise hand.
So
funny.
That didn't work, but if you have your hand raised, if you want to talk, you can go ahead right now.
See, Cherie did it. Look at that. And Miles.
Tim, did you want to talk?
Oh no, I'm fine. I would just bitch about things going on, you know.
Okay. I've been on Zoom calls where almost the entire time was spent talking about, I don't have that on my screen, and it goes on and on with trying to get
Mills
everybody.
had his hand up, Madge. Mills has his hand up.
Mills, did you? Yes, you want to add something?
I just wanted to point out that if you go to the California Department of Public Health website and ask for vaccine recommendations, the official California policy is that we give vaccinations to people over 65 and to teachers and to food workers. And that's still the official policy, even though if you look at the newspapers, you think that the teachers and the food workers are being left out. They aren't. They're still in tier 1, equal to the people over 65.
And Sherry, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just thought that this is really a question maybe Mills can answer. That when someone comes out of a psychiatric care unit, a PUF unit, do many of them go into a crisis stabilization unit or a crisis residential treatment facility, as opposed to just you know, they're out of the PUF unit, now they're on the street? Do you know?
I don't know the breakdown. Crisis residential treatment is only 8 beds,
Right.
and that'd be enough to take. And I think we'll have 8 admissions and discharges from the PUF unit per week. And so the CRT is not going to have enough beds. The CRTs elsewhere are being used mostly for homeless people to give them, 30 days and to stabilize and find homes for them. But a large number are discharged. The state hospitals, it's almost impossible to get into the state hospitals. So a large number of people are discharged into the community.
Unless there were more CRTs that were available, and in the original Kemper report, they talked about renovating houses and making them CRTs, which would be a lot less costly than building a facility from the ground up.
The long-term expense, though, is the staffing of the CRT. So you want to have a facility that has enough people in it that makes staffing efficient. But Fort Bragg desperately needs a CRT. And actually, we're working on it, that they have a 6-bed CRT. Adventist is working on that, and that would help tremendously, because there's a lot of people who are still too sick to go home, but not sick enough to go to the state hospital. And we got to find, care for those people. And right now there's a house in Redwood Valley that can house 4 to 6 people that the Adventists have supported. And that has been wonderful for the Ukiah and Willits patients who have normally would be just stuck in the emergency room for days.
And
that's unlicensed.
Oh, okay.
That's unlicensed.
So realistically, what would be an option to care for people once they're released from a PUF unit?
We need more unlicensed or residential care facilities. We need more beds in the community.
Jane, did you have something to add to this?
Yes, and it's just an affirmation of what Dr. Mills was saying. That's really absolutely the truth. And it's not just the truth here. It's the truth in Marin. It's the truth all over. We desperately need more housing, period. That's if you don't have any mental health issues at all. If you just want to have a studio apartment or any kind of apartment or any place to live, period. Don't look in Mendocino County because it's just not available. But if you have a mental health issue or any other kind of an issue, it's even more not available. So housing is so important. And it has not been a part of the state mental health program in other places as well. My son was in the hospital in Marin. They were just going to release him to the street or with a bus pass. That's what was going to happen the last time he was in the hospital there, which was about 12 years ago. They may have something else in place now that they didn't then, but that's been the way it's been being done since our state hospitals closed. And I don't know if it was different than that before when we had all the state hospitals. So we need housing and we need interim housing and we need the locations where they could be placed or the motels they could be turned into housing or any kind of thing like that for housing for any number of people, not just the mentally ill.
Yes, there's a great need for supportive housing to help people who can't make it on their own.
All right. Well, I believe we've called on everybody who had a comment and we've heard a lot of information. John, do you have any closing remarks you'd like to make?
Just thank you, Madge, and everyone else who helped put this on. I appreciate the well for letting me use their building today because I didn't have the electricity. And if you have any comments, additional comments, or anything you want to get a hold of me, it's always haschakj@mendocinocounty.org, or my phone number is 972-4214. So anyway, thanks for being on this afternoon. I know it's trying times for everyone, and we're going to get through it. So wishing you the best, and I appreciate everyone's input.
Okay, great.
And I've got a list of things I need to check on tomorrow. So
yeah, thank you so much,
John.
Yeah,
Thanks so much.
And John,
Thank you,
before you,
Madge.
yes, thank you everybody for attending. And I know that there were probably other people who would have attended, but don't have any power where they are. And I couldn't send out emails to them and so forth. And now I have to get a phone call, but John, don't leave yet.
okay, thanks everyone.
Oh, now I thought of something.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you.
Okay, take care, Jane. Tim, you had something.
Bye,
you wanted-
everybody.
Well, I was
Okay.
just wondering, I think the Comcasts and those kind of, internet providers have to, I don't know, I think they're regulated in some way by the county, right?
I don't know if they're regulated by the county. I think by the state.
Okay. It's just kind of really annoying here to have, spent, thousands of dollars to have a backup system that will keep my infrastructure going when there's a power outage, and 4 or 5 hours later Comcast goes down and I can't get any work done because I work online.
Well, it's a real problem up in Laytonville and Covelo, and they've been having just serious problems, even 911 calls being dropped. And so we've been working with US Cellular, but I've been going through, the sheriff and I have been working with Senator Mike McGuire on it, and he's had to call in the State Department of Office of Emergency Services and the State Department on Communications, and everyone, so it's a state level issue, and he's getting results, or we're getting results from it.
Great.
But yeah, sorry about your problems with
Well,
Verizon and everyone. So
you can do a lot with batteries and solar.
all right, take care, Tim.
All right, you too. Bye.
Yeah.
And thank
no
you everybody
problem.
who's still on the phone. If you're still here, thank you for attending, and we'll do another one in a couple of months, and we'll let everybody know as we can.
All right, thank you, Madge. I really
Okay.
appreciate it. Okay.
Bye everybody.